Down in Duval County, we roll, we rise. People all around me, eyes on the prize. Podcasts and stories, talking about the grind. Every win and glory, Jaguars on my mind. Duval, let's hear it loud. Jaguars make us proud. Game day, feel the crowd. Duval, sing it loud. News and rumors flying, games that steal the show. On this team we're riding, in the sun they glow. Through the ups and the downs, together we stand tall. In our hearts and our towns, Jaguars, we hear the call. Duval, let's hear it loud. Jaguars make us proud. Game day, feel the crowd. Duval, sing it loud. Duval, sing it loud.
All right, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Jaguars Fan Battle Podcast. My name is Ammo, and this is my good friend Kenny. He is not a Jaguars fan, so we're going to get that out of the way, but he is a Panthers fan, so, by association, we came into the league together. We are the same animal, and the Panthers suck, so he's got to have a team to root for when the playoffs come around this year. So he's going to help me discuss a lot of the offseason moves that we've made, some stuff that will affect us on the field and off the field, and basically get us ready because we got training camp around the corner and the preseason is going to be here sooner than we think. So, Kenny, what do you got to say to the people?
Let's go. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Like you said, Panthers fan, but 30 years. Let's go. Congratulations on the team solidifying where it stays, and let's go. It's going to be a good year. You guys are working well. So.
All right. Well, speaking of which, talking about keeping the team where it belongs, we can put those London Jaguar rumors to rest. The Jaguars and the city council agreed to a stadium deal that should keep us in Jacksonville for another 30 years. So there's a lot of victory laps that Jaguars fans have been running on some tweets that were like 10, 11 years ago. It's been great to see. It's been thoroughly entertaining for me to watch because I've been waiting 10, 11, 12 years for some of these tweets to come back to bite these people in their asses. So happy to see Jacksonville stay in Jacksonville. Also, as someone who's been to Jaguars games, that stadium definitely needed to get that upgrade. They're going to put in stuff that will give us a lot more shade, which is desperately needed because you just absolutely cook in that stadium. So, Kenny, as somebody who came into the league at the same time, you're a fan of the Panthers. They are having some trouble getting this stadium deal done.
They are.
So I kind of want to get your perspective of somebody that's going through a similar thing, but not with the similar result right now. And how does that feel for you as somebody who lives in the city that plays, so it means more to you. I'm about 3 hours out of Jacksonville, but for you, what does that mean going through that where you don't have an agreement?
Right. I work not too far from the restaurant that he walked in and said, the whole owner thing, don't, let the GM pick the pick. So obviously there's a little bit of turmoil between owner and city, I think, to say the least, especially, he's already kind of checked a box off with South Carolina where they're already, kind of simmering like, oh, this guy can go, So it's definitely a different side of the coin than, what Jacksonville has been able to do. I think that's a testament to how he's been able to do multiple charities, if I'm not mistaken, like in the city of Jacksonville. And it's like, I think that's awesome. As a wrestling fan, I'll cheer for, the cons there as well, the little brother in the wrestling world. But it's like, that's awesome to see, just somebody challenging, getting the best out of that product, but then also putting a great product on the football field as well. I think it's, a testament to just the hard work of, all the cons. And honestly, it doesn't seem like there's many cons, no, pun intended, going into this year. I think there's a lot of things going to do it. But no, I think there's a lot to look up for. And you're in for it now. We're buckled.
All right,
But,
dude.
yeah,
So,
we're going.
a lot of people had their doubts, with Jacksonville agreeing to do the London game once a year. And then, this year they had 2 games there, which really started to revamp the rumors like this guy's really trying to move the team out of here. So, like I said, it is such a sigh of relief, such a great feeling to tell those people to eat shit that kept telling us we were going to be the
Right.
London Jaguars. So,
Where did how come that they've been, are they that popular over like
well,
across the pond? Like, are they that
so
like,
not
what is the reason?
so the only reason that people say that is because we go there and we play there every year.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, why are you the team that goes over there every year? Like,
Well,
is
that
there
is
an
because
agreement?
our owner agreed to do that, and that's part of the
Oh,
what fed into the speculation is, he's agreeing to take one home game away from the Jaguars every single year to play it in London, and it's a money game. They get more money from playing over there because London does not get a full slate of games. There's only a couple games that get played over there, so it sells out. It's a great event. It's a great money-making
of course.
opportunity.
Yeah.
But
Is that something he can generate and create his revenue for the team? Like, can he acquire things for the team? Is this helping fund?
yeah, so it
Is this
definitely
coming
helps.
back to the deal
That's
and
why
all
they
this
do it,
stuff?
because every time, the conversation came up, he would say the conversation of viability, which would really tick off Jaguars fans because you're not taking an away game, you're taking one home game away from Jacksonville every single year to play it over in London, which hurts
Right.
the city. So it's
And why did
been a
they
it's been a
start
tough
taking an
spot.
away game from him too? It's kind of wild.
Well, yeah, so that,
make that.
this year it's like, oh, they played 2 games, but yeah, the second one was an
Right.
away game, so that wouldn't matter. Who cares if they play that in London or if they play that in LA or they play that in Buffalo? It's all the same thing. It's the home
Why
game
wouldn't they
that
have
really matters.
arranged that as one?
So,
That's kind of
like I
interesting.
said, these rumors can die. Jacksonville's
Right.
here to
Good.
stay. Good on the Khan family to get that deal done with city council or to come to an agreement at least. It's a long ways away. It's not going to be until 2028 before they're actually playing in this stadium. But
Hey, it's a done
hey,
deal. That's yeah.
so
Now it's a hurry up and wait game. That's something to look
this
forward
was
to.
obviously huge news for Jacksonville. Another topic that I'd like to start before we go too far is another big topic in Jacksonville. Historically, over the last decade, maybe 15 years, Jacksonville has notoriously struggled to re-sign their homegrown talent. Obviously, there's been a lot of years where there has not been quality of homegrown talent to even re-sign, so letting them walk is not that big of a deal. But there's been a lot of reliance on free agents to build the core of the roster, where you need to build a core of the roster through the draft and supplement the roster with free agency. So we're starting to get to that point where that's starting to turn on its head and we're developing. So we got 2 little tidbits we'll talk about here. Josh Hines Allen has signed a 5-year, $150 million deal with the Jaguars. And that is a huge deal. It was the biggest contract in franchise history. We'll talk about another one which will break that contract in franchise history. But for now, at that time, Josh Allen was the highest paid and the first $100 million guy in franchise history. So hats off to him. He deserves it. This is a guy that has produced, as a rookie when Calais Campbell was here. Had a couple injury-prone years. A lot of people were not sure if he was worth re-signing. He gets his $30 million a year. I say he's worth it. Only thing is, you maybe could have paid him, saved a little bit of money last year, but he also hadn't had a 17.5 sack season yet. He had decent seasons, but he had a lot of pressures that wasn't adding up. He wasn't getting home. He wasn't finishing. What was the exact reason for that? Was it a lack of a edge presence on the other side? Was it scheme? What was it, you know? So finally, 2023, he puts it all together. He gets home on those pressures, so the numbers start equaling out kind of where they should. And he cashes in for a huge payday, and I'm happy to have him for 5 more years. He's a tremendous player. Him and Trayvon Walker were actually the league leading sack duo in the NFL for total sacks last year. So I look for them to improve on what they've been doing. You know, maybe they don't improve crazy in the sack numbers. Asking Josh Allen to beat 17.5 or even replicate 17.5 is a tall task. Even getting to 15 is a great year. So happy to have him here. Trayvon Walker is developing better than I thought he would. I knew he was going to be a raw deal, raw athlete.
Someone like Hines Allen to
Mm-hmm.
play off of, though. I mean, that's huge for someone to be.
And Josh embraces the he really embraces the leadership role. He wants to learn. He wants to teach. You know, he was out at that sack summit that Von Miller runs out there, I think in Vegas. I don't know. But he was out there and
swim, the hit and spin. I saw that for Bernsey. I think he was out there with.
Yep, Burns was there. There are a lot of your big name pass rushers go out there. Max Crosby, you know. So it's a place you want to be. It's a place you want to be, and I'm happy he's out there. I think Trayvon was actually there too. So, yeah.
I know I saw Josh back there somewhere. The video was just on Burns at the time. But
yeah. So happy to get that done. He did change his last name in the last couple days to Josh Hines Allen, previously known as the better Josh Allen. But he has some family members that are really good athletes, and he wants to pay homage to that side of his family. So homage? I can't fault him.
Is it homage?
You don't worry about how I say it.
Fair enough.
Anyway, so I like it. You know, awesome. Pay respect to your family.
Like a leadership role, like, you know, paying, you know, homage to both sides. But I think, no, that's awesome, though. Seriously, that is awesome to be able to pay like respect to both sides and be able to kind of carry through a family, you know, throughout, you know, the rest of the.
You know, the haters will also say that he's just trying to get away from that QB in Buffalo, but as he just said in an interview today with Rich Eisen, he's 2-0. So the other Josh Allen hasn't beat him yet. Josh Hines Allen also has an interception. You know. So I'm just saying he didn't need to be the one to change his name if it was that. So
that's fair. Yeah, I don't see that being the case. I could definitely see it.
But it's an easy narrative for people to write, and you know,
for sure.
You know, that's what it's going to be.
Oh, I want to distance myself from this guy, this, that, and the third. But you're going to distance yourself already. It's that Josh Allen did not have 17.5 sacks last year. You know what I mean?
That's
like
true.
It's just I truly believe it's just him standing up, kind of like just paying respect to his family. I don't think it goes any further than that.
That's it.
Why would you assume that? And like you said, why would you change your name? Why would you be the one to change it? No.
You're 2-0 against him. You got no reason. Nope.
Yeah, if anything, make it a deal.
Mm-hmm.
Like, get on X right now.
Hey,
loser changes their name, dude.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go. But no, like, but I think it's an awesome ode to his character, though, too, because obviously it's going to show that kind of familia kind of like role that he's going to try to instill in Jacksonville. I think it's going to carry over, like, from his personal life into that, because not only is he going to see that jersey every game, you know.
Mm-hmm. Well, we're going to move on here. Another record-setting contract that the Jaguars signed in the offseason here. We ink QB1 to a 5-year, $275 million deal.
It's a lot of heavy shoulders.
Kenny, as somebody who is not a fan of the team, let me ask you initial reactions to hearing that Trevor Lawrence got the richest contract in NFL history for average per year. He tied Joe Burrow, who signed the same exact contract in terms of years and total money, but he signed it 1 year ago. As we all know, last year's price ain't the same as today's price. To get them at the same
No,
price,
no.
it ain't the same price.
Never
But
once.
what was your initial reaction to hearing Trevor Lawrence, who's kind of been a polarizing topic amongst fan bases and media pundits about, is he the guy or is he a bust? You know, you hear a lot of the different things. So what do you think when you see this contract?
They're definitely banking on him, and I think that they have all right to. I don't think he's really shown any reason not to have faith in his play. Um, I'm not sure where to rank him right now. To be honest, I think he got his money, but I think oddly enough, it is a prove it year still, which is weird to say after signing such a large deal for like 55 like average. It's a huge deal. But I think that they have supplied him enough in this offseason, especially defensively. I know we're going to get to some of those acquisitions, but I know they are building around him. They have faith in him as a player, as a leader. I think this is a huge step, even him being in a year where I feel like he does need to take a couple of steps forward to kind of announce himself in that elite range. I mean, I know you mentioned Joe Burrow as well. I think he's going to be in a crazy prove it year too, but I think it's where it fell in the contract. It's just you had to pay him a little sooner, and they kind of developed similarly. I not to discredit either player, in any way or to upset any fan bases, but I think they know how to utilize the weapons when they do, and typically it does fall, not to place blame, but it does kind of fall on some of those players that are involved. They're kind of in the play, whether it's drops, whether it's I'm out of bounds and I'm catching it, whether what have you. Not to, like I said, not to place blame on any players or core, but it's like I think Trevor has everything to make the throws, make the reads. That's what you need. He has the speed to be able to take off if he wants. He's got all the tools. I think it's just a matter of putting him in the right room to make it all come together. Long-winded,
All right.
but that's it.
So let me bring up a few key points about this contract that kind of separates it from some of the other quarterback contracts that have been signed in the last couple of years here. This deal does not start right away. So this extension does not kick in right away. So the last 2 years that he has, which is the last year of his rookie deal plus the 5th-year option, still remain. And then in, what's that going to be, 2026? That's going to be the first year that the extension actually kicks in. So when you factor that in,
Wait.
he's
Back up. Go to your point again. I wasn't actually off camera. I didn't mean to drink the beer on camera. During your point, do you want to run that back and then you can splice it?
yeah. So his extension doesn't kick into 2026. So the 4th year of his deal is this year, and then the 5th-year option will be next year, and then the extension will kick in the following year. So you're talking about $55 million today being the highest average per year in the league, but it's not going to kick in until 2 years. There's going to be 5-6 more guys that are going to sign contract extensions before that extension actually kicks in, and they're going to sign for $60 million, $65 million. So you're now talking about, before he even touches his contract, he's now the 7th or 8th highest paid quarterback in the league. It was a little bit different when it was Patrick Mahomes. He had won an MVP in the first year that he started, threw 50 touchdowns. He had Super Bowl appearances. And then he signs his contract extension, but they did 10 years, $500 million or $450 million, whatever it was. And everybody's like, oh my God, they're giving him almost $50 million a year. That's crazy. But I'm like, look at the contract extension doesn't start for like another 2 years. I'm like, there's going to be a bunch of people that are going to sign contract extensions before that. And he's not even going to be the highest paid QB before he even starts getting paid. And by the time you're 2-3 years into the deal, which where we're at now is about 2 to 3 years into Pat Mahomes' deal. And Pat Mahomes is about out of the top 10 of highest paid quarterbacks in the league. And Pat Mahomes is undoubtedly the best quarterback in the league. And he's now not even in the top 10 or just about rounding out the top 10 for highest paid quarterbacks. And he's only 2 years into a 10-year deal.
I was about to 10 years.
So when you look at Trevor Lawrence, they did a similar thing. And then I saw a breakdown of the contract, and his cap hit doesn't hit over 50 million till 2029. So he's getting this $55 million per year average that you get out of this, but they backloaded the last 2 years of the deal where there's not a lot of guaranteed money left just to pump up the average. But he did this deal so that he could keep money on the table for the Jaguars to extend. And he said he wanted to do that. And then when people saw the contract that it's 5 years, 275 million, he's the highest paid quarterback in the league, they started saying, oh yeah, well, he said he wanted to be team friendly. What does that actually mean? He signed the highest deal. You didn't look at the details. It doesn't start for 2 years. It's extremely backloaded in the last 2 years of the deal after the dead money is almost non-existent. And I think there's even a void year on the deal too, or maybe 2 void years because the Jaguars have started to play with those a little bit. But that gives you a little bit more flexibility because you spread that cap hit out. And it's 2029 before that cap hit breaks 50 million. That's going to be nothing. The cap went up 25 million this year or something like that.
Yeah,
Goes up another 10, 15 next year, 20 next year, whatever it is. By the time he touches his extension, the cap's gone up $40 million. So
they have the next extension or the next agreement, like the players agreement. Wasn't it just recent though?
CBA?
Years? Yeah.
Yeah, CBA was recent, so it's going to be a while before we get another one. Yeah.
That's why I was like, oh shit.
So
because obviously with contracts going up,
so there's a lot of conversation about Trevor and is he worth this money? Like they're not really actually looking at the contract details. I believe it was Andrew Brandt who used to be working the front office for the Green Bay Packers, really well respected in the league. He did a breakdown on the actual numbers of the contract, and when you look at the total cash, because the cash is what's the important part. All the fake fluffy numbers of the non-guaranteed stuff just to pump numbers up is what people get all hung up on, but they actually mean nothing. So it's the total cash. And I think of the quarterbacks that have signed contract extensions in the last 2 to 3 years, I think he's like 10th in total cash over the first year, 10th in like the second year. Like he's not anywhere close to the top, even though he gets that pretty $55 million per year average. They structured this in such a team-friendly way and to give Trevor that label of highest paid player in the league, to give him that respect as well. So it was a really well concocted deal by all sides of this. When you factor it out, I think we have him under contract for 7 years for an average of like 40-something million per year. When you really factor out what we owe him for the next 7 years of what his contract
will he be at the end of it? Like what was his age at the end of the deal?
He should be like 31.
I mean, shit. Yeah. Wait, can you cuss on this?
Yeah.
All right, I haven't paid attention. If you have, it's been so normal.
I'm just happy that the Jaguars were able to get these deals done. I'm happy we got the Trevor deal done early, especially considering it doesn't start. Now we can focus on getting things done for Tyson Campbell and Andre Sisco because Trevor gave us the flexibility. Josh Allen getting his deal done also freed up cap room. So we got a lot of cap room right now that we're going to be able to roll over into next year. So we'll be able to get these re-signings done. Maybe they don't get done before the year. There were rumors that the Tyson Campbell deal might get done soon, around the same time the Trevor deal did. But, I think they were going to let Trevor's deal run its course and let him get his flowers and everything like that. But we'll see if Tyson gets that done before, camp or
doing that right now. I mean, is there like any presumably reason why he needs to have that title, or is it just something that that people kind of view as a token, like you said, like flowers or so? Is it?
Well, that's just the nature of how negotiations and everything work. It's always next man up. Whoever's next up is going to be the highest paid guy, or he's going to set the floor to a higher level so that the next guy who gets paid is getting paid more. You see it in the wide receiver market when you see Amon-Ra St. Brown and these other contracts get done, when people like Brandon Ayuk and other guys, CeeDee Lamb, are looking to get their money. And they're looking at Justin Jefferson. They're looking at these other deals, and they're like, well, you're just raising the floor of what I'm going to ask for. So even if I don't get the top thing, you're going to get me within a million or two of that top number, to keep me
Oh,
around,
shit.
and now they just raised that top number. So Jags were smart to get it done before somebody like Tua gets signed. You know, there's other guys that are going to come up too. Dak Prescott, who's reportedly asking for 60 million. You know, get
That's the
that deal
deal
done. So,
that I'm glad you got that shit done before. That's
mhm.
the one I'm like, ah, hell, because it's
And the Cowboys are handicapped. They have to do it because what are you going to
right,
do? Who are you going to start without Dak Prescott?
right.
Like,
That's
unless you are really going to
and I'm
say
not
we're going to
comparing the
strip this
two.
down and we're going to completely tank and rebuild, but why
Right,
would you do that with what you have there? Like Dak is what gives you the best option right now, and so you got to bite that
agreed.
bullet. If you were smart, you would have extended him earlier, and it would have been a cheaper price. But you know, Jerry plays hardball, so now he's got to deal with paying Dak $60 million.
He was hurt though too, wasn't he? I mean, he was out for a hot minute. Like he got
He's
like
Well, he was reportedly in a boot recently, but he said it was no big deal. But
right.
nobody
I was
cares
gonna
about the
say, well,
Cowboys because they're a bunch of
yeah, of course.
crybabies and nobody likes their fans. So moving on, the Jaguars and Trevor Lawrence signed a historic deal. Happy to get it done. Now, you mentioned it earlier. The Jaguars have started to kind of piece things together to build around Trevor and see what they can really do. Um, Not the most flashy offseason in terms of free agents signings, which I'm actually kind of happy about because, you know, these flashy free agent signings are only so much. Um, and, you know, you always have to pay more than the market when you go to free agency. But Luke Fortner, the center for the Jacksonville Jaguars over the last 2 years, you know, good kid, but his strength at the point of attack is a real big problem. Too many pockets getting pushed from the middle, which has caused a lot of the issues with the passing game and the inability to hit passes over the middle of the field. Um, and it's also why we are like bottom three in terms of run blocking. Uh, Also, our tackles aren't like the best run blockers. We are definitely a pass blocking offensive line, but the center is a huge reason why the running game couldn't be successful. So we went out and we signed Mitch Morse from Buffalo, which was, I
Awesome.
think, like the most important signing that
Underrated,
we made
but
in the offseason was Mitch Morse because that is what is giving us the biggest upgrade over what we had previously and what was one of the biggest problems on the roster from last year that should solve more than just one problem that we had with just one guy. So I'm happy to get that done. He's an older guy. You know, we have a
that's
relatively young
definitely
roster for the guys that are contributing. So to get an older guy that's experienced, who's been on a perennial playoff team, he went from the Chiefs to the Bills. He played with, he played under Coach Doug Peterson when he was still with Kansas City before he took the Eagles job. So he's familiar. I think it was a great signing. It's probably one that I'm most excited about in terms of our free agent signings. But we did make a couple other really good signings in free agency. We brought his teammate from Buffalo, Gabe Davis. Um, People questioned it. They're like, is this who they're really going to replace Calvin Ridley with? I mean, they signed him before they knew they were losing Calvin Ridley, and the idea was to bring Calvin Ridley back.
right.
And I would have liked to bring Calvin Ridley back. He was a great player. He had his issues that I think that a second year in the system would have probably shaken out some of that stuff, like miscommunications with the quarterback, you know, a full year in the system, plus not playing football for a year and a half.
That would have
That's
been
going
at
to
least
mess
5
with
more
you.
touchdowns that
So
last year alone.
just getting back into the swing of things, getting a
Right.
second year in the same system, I think Calvin Ridley would have been great for us. I wanted to get him around $18 million a year. 20 was stretching it, but when the Titans came in and were saying 23 million, I was happy to say, let's move on. That's a high price for what we dealt with last year for a guy who's, you know, 30 years old before the season starts or around when the season starts. That's tough. So sucks that he goes to a division rival, but it's the Titans, so it's fuck the Titans always. Gabe Davis,
You
I
switched
think, is
up.
a better fit in our system. He's a big body guy who just catches touchdowns. He has a high yards per catch. Um, So that's really important. He was out there catching a lot of Josh Allen YOLO balls. So I'm hoping that he's going to
Underrated
catch some
route
Trevor
runner
Lawrence
too.
YOLO balls out here too. So that's another good signing. I think he fits the offense in a good way, kind of fits Trevor and what he does better as a passer. So that's another great signing. Darnell Savage was an interesting signing for us as well. He's played in Green Bay. I really liked him as a prospect. I always pick him up in my Madden franchises, got to do it. Got to get those athletic safeties. But he's had an up and down career. He's made some really great plays, but he's also been very inconsistent. He's going to come in, he's going to compete for the nickel and, some other safety role. I think it's going to be better than what we had with Rayshawn Jenkins, because Rayshawn Jenkins, while he had some really great moments as a Jaguar, he had his limitations. And I think the combination of Darnell Savage and Antonio Johnson, who we already have on the roster, just fit better and will make more of an impact next to Andre Sisco, who is a bona fide stud and is going to find his way into a breakout season this year. Other free agent signings that we had, we lost Darius Williams, but we replaced him with Ronald Darby. Now, Darius Williams had a great year for us. He had, his great moments, some inconsistencies, but we went out and we got Ryan Nielsen as a defensive coordinator. So there's going to be more press man, and Ronald Darby fits the defense better. So not that he's like some crazy upgrade over Darius Williams. I think he is an upgrade, but specifically because he fits that system better. So I'm happy to see that. He's also another older guy bringing into the secondary. So that's good to have that mentor, because Tyson Campbell, Andre Sisco, these are all guys that are, not even 25 yet or hitting that 25 age range. So getting an older guy in there to kind of teach them some finer details of the game is also really good.
For sure.
Let's see, who else did we get here? The big one from San Francisco, Eric Armstead.
Yes.
Talk about another vet presence, adding to another room that definitely needs a nice vet presence. Josh Hines Allen, and Trayvon Walker do their thing, but bring in Eric Armstead to push the pocket from the middle, give them more flexibility.
Leave a lot of one-on-ones on your edge there.
Exactly. Freeing up more one-on-ones, reducing the double teams for Allen is a great thing. Also, Devon Hamilton.
Middle, heavy. I love the pickup. That's my favorite one. Yeah.
I know you love some D-line guys. I know that.
Yeah.
You
I
gotta
gotta
listen.
push the
You
line,
win
keep
games.
going.
You win games by affecting the quarterback. So you got to protect your quarterback, and you got to affect the other team's quarterback. So you got to build in the trenches. So Mitch Morse and Eric Armstead are honestly the two best signings for what we need. Also, there was a lot of times last year where the Jaguars were kind of weak at the point of attack, and they didn't have that physicality. They didn't have that roughness. They had it at times, but it faded away. And I think they brought some guys that can bring that grit and that stuff back to that. And that's also really important here as well. But Devon Hamilton, he dealt with back issues in 2023. After a solid 2022, he got paid, but he had some back issues, and there was a chance he might not play again. So I'm happy that he's back and he's playing. He was not 100% this past year, but supposedly he's getting there now, and he's getting that strength back. If he does, that's our big space eater in the middle there. He's going to allow Eric Armstead to get free with, easier matchups on the D-line as well. So I'm really excited for what can happen with that. And Ryan Nielsen is known as a defensive line guru. So we're just putting together a cast for him to just go out there and just send people flying at the quarterback. And I can't fucking wait.
You mentioned playing Madden. That man's going to be playing Madden out on the field. Like, he has a
Mm-hmm.
solid dream team there. It's going to be
That
really
dude's
nice,
just gonna.
especially
That
to
dude's.
push
He's
this
just
game
got to
along.
send four and drop everyone in coverage with that line. He can do that. He has that ability.
No, Duval can look in at least top 10, I think, of turnovers this year. I can feel there's a thing there. I think there's a mumbling that's kind of um, relative or like cognizant of what's 2017. When was the wild year? That crazy
2017.
so yeah, when that run, I think yeah, it's obviously not to beef it up and kind of like, oh, I'm gonna not to fucking glory hole you guys, but it's like I really do feel that there's no Diddy, but there's no
Jesus.
brother, um none of that, no, but seriously, I do think the fact that you were able to solidify your leaders for the future with Josh Hines Allen and Trevor, and then also having your also senior presence captains in Armstead and Morse. I think that's going to bolster both like confidences. I think, and it's just going to resonate out with an automatic double team somewhere. With Morse being a mule, Armstead is a monster. Like there's a you found the leaks of the boat and you sealed them. You know what I mean? I think that it's a more cohesive team. I think having that not chaperone, but having that kind of presence to turn to as a young player, and especially as a budding player like Allen and Walker, I think having Armstead, somebody like that, is invaluable. So I mean,
Absolutely.
kudos seriously to the offseason though.
Now, kind of speaking about that, they sealed the holes on the boat. I have been one that has been extra critical of Trent Baalke. I have rocked the Trent Baalke clown profile picture on Twitter for quite some time. It has come and gone, as I've seen
Has
fit.
since moved on.
But he has done a lot of things. There are certain things that I would have done differently in the offseason. Like I would have got the Josh Dunn deal done earlier so that we could have tagged Ridley and maybe kept him. But the way it all shaked out, I'm not mad at it. Um,
Played out how it should.
j-
Mm-hmm.
yeah, he redeemed himself. He did a lot of good things. He historically is one of the worst, if not the worst, general manager at drafting wide receivers in the first round. It just is an unbelievably terrible list, and just sometimes just completely avoiding drafting the position high. So I'm glad that he did, and I
Right.
wasn't
I
quite
was
as
gonna
high
say
on
this year.
Brian Thomas as some people, and it wasn't that I was low on him. I just wasn't as familiar with him as I maybe was with some of the others. I
I'm
kind of
familiar
figured we
with you. Yeah,
probably wouldn't touch receiver in the first. I thought corner was always going to be the move later
I would
on.
be surprised to see that. Not gonna
But
lie, I was like, "What?"
the
Yeah, I remember you
kid's
texted me
six
like,
three with 4.3 speed, and he had 17 touchdowns last year.
right,
He's smooth when he
find the end
moves.
zone.
And we've got a slot guy. We've got Evan Ingram, who's a big slot. So those are, Kirk and Ingram are our underneath guys. Brian Thomas is going to take the top off the defense, and then Gabe Davis is your big body possession, YOLO ball, whatever you want.
That's your murder
It's a
ball
good
guy. That's
collection.
the guy. Yeah.
It is a good collection of wide receivers. Um, I'm a little skeptical about Brian Thomas just because it was Trent Baalke that drafted him in the first round. If he was drafted by any other
Some
general manager in the
apprehensiveness.
first, I would be like, oh, okay, that's a great pick. But it's Trent Baalke, and his history with wide receivers gives me pause. But I'm excited about the pick. I think he's going to be great with Trevor. I think the three receivers with Ingram and Etienne out of the backfield, I just think that there's a really good unit for Trevor to
Right.
put up some pretty good numbers this year and put a lot of these haters and a lot of these doubters back in their place.
I'm kind of
Um,
glad that you did go receiver, especially
mhm.
a young, like touted receiver, like a prize pick, if you will, like a higher pick. I think it's nice because it's something that, correct me if I'm wrong, but Trevor's never had. He's been filled with like older like talent. He's been more more seasoned veterans and things
Yeah,
of that
he
nature.
hasn't had a receiver to grow with.
He hasn't had a little bro like, and not to say Brian Thomas is that in any way, or not to like sun him in any way, but just hey, welcome to the league. I'm your first quarterback. I'm the first guy that's able to like
Well, with
be
the
able to talk to
special,
you.
it's your first.
I'm special. I'm your first QB.
Jesus
But
Christ.
but I really think that I think similar with Leggett. I think with Young, it's going to be interesting. It'll be like, well, we're both in this shit together. Like we're young gun. Like we got to go. Like we got to prove people wrong. But I think having somebody like Trevor that's been in the league for a few years and then having to be that person for someone like Thomas as a receiver, because everybody, Ingram, he's had Kirk, he's had like Zay Jones, like no matter how young they may have been, they've still been there before him. They've caught
Mm-hmm.
passes elsewhere. They've had to
Mm-hmm.
understand other rhythms and all this other shit. Thomas is going to be the most locked in receiver he has ever had that paid attention to how he throws, how he steps back, because he doesn't want to fuck up his pick. He doesn't want to fuck up being selected so high. I think it puts a lot of stress on Thomas, but I think Thomas will rise to it. I think so. It's like I got a lot of optimism for him because it's like you said, nothing like your first, but like no lie, you can't. You ever go to like one? It's like not similar in any way, like but for this analogy, you cook in one kitchen. You're gonna go and you go to a different one. That chef doesn't act the same way. You don't know how to respond to this motherfucker. You don't know what to do when he has a bad day and he's like, okay, he's off a quarter to the left. He's like, okay, he fucking burns pasta today. Like I think it's gonna be really nice to have to start a new relationship versus being able to rewire another one.
I'm just gonna point out to the audience that's listening right now, the reason that Kenny used a slash chef slash kitchen reference here is because I texted him telling him that I was watching The Bear and I had made it through season 2 and it was really great. So
He would appreciate this.
he's just connecting the dots over here.
Pandering with the host.
Yeah, pandering with the host. Here we go. So
That's
yeah,
right.
we kind of
Pounding,
talked in
baby.
depth there about the first round pick and Brian Thomas,
Oh,
getting Trevor
man.
a good weapon here. Now, second round pick, a little more questionable here, and it is absolutely a Trent Baalke pick. We got Mason Smith out of LSU. Apparently, that was the only school that we could draft from this year. So
You're playing favorites.
you go back, and this guy is another one that has some injury history. And came back from his injury and he wasn't 100%. So there's some film out there where you're not really seeing what the player is. You started to see towards the later end of 2023 that he was starting to get healthy and you were starting to see that dominance come back. If you go back to his 2021 film when he actually was healthy, you can really see some of the explosive athlete that he is. He's a big guy with long arms, which is, the Trent Baalke special. Also, he's not forced to start. So,
Right.
he's a second round pick. He's a guy that maybe some people thought could be second round pick. Some people thought he could be a fourth round pick. There was a lot of, people that thought maybe he was pushed down, that could have been pushed down further and the Jaguars maybe reached. But Ryan Nielsen, defensive line guru, if he's going to get if somebody's going to get something out of this kid, it's going to be someone like Nielsen. You got Josh Hines Allen on the edge. You got Trayvon Walker on the edge. You got Eric Armstead and Devon Hamilton in the middle. You have Roy Robertson Harris. You have other guys already there that don't force Mason Smith to come in and be anything but a student. Come in and learn from guys that have been in the league for 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years. He's in a really good position with a really good coach for that position group. He's got a really good group of guys that have a lot of experience. You got Eric Armstead, who has a lot of playoff experience, Super Bowl experience. You got Josh Hines Allen, who's got a lot of pressures and can get to the quarterback from the edge. Right. You got Trayvon Walker, who's a young, raw athlete, just like Mason Smith, who didn't have the production or whatever, and it's more about a raw deal. And can you mold that raw deal into something so they can click because they're similar in that way. So again, I'm happy to see what we can do with this kid. There's a few things maybe I would have done differently at that spot just based on needs. But to come back in the third round and get somebody like Jarian Jones out of FSU made me feel a little bit better. We addressed the corner position. We got Ronald Darby, but that just replaces Darius Williams, who left. Jarian Jones actually comes in and replaces Trey Herndon, which I think he's an upgrade right out of the gate. No disrespect to Trey Herndon. He played a lot of snaps in Jacksonville and he had, some good moments there. But we got younger at that position, and Jarian Jones is a guy who's high energy, always wants to be around the ball, always wants to be around the game. Like, you just need that infectious attitude in the locker room, especially in your DB room. So I'm really kind of excited about that. I think he probably gets the starting nickel spot sooner rather than later. Or he'll rotate, with Antonio Johnson and Darnell Savage there. But I think he's probably going to come in and earn a lot of reps pretty early on. I know you're not quite as familiar with a lot of these draft picks as much.
Unfortunately, not as familiar with the pick, but to hear you talk about being able to kind of go into the nickel position, be able to kind of go to where Darby, I know it's like he already picked him up, but it's like be able to kind of once again learn. It seems to be a very nurturing off season in the best of ways, because it's reassuring your stars. It's getting your older veterans. It's getting the people that maybe some people else say that they reach, but it doesn't matter, because it's like people are selected when they're selected because the team believes, hey, somebody else might grab them before. I don't want to miss them. So it's like to see, it's like I could see where you would worry about that second round, but after everything else kind of transpired before that point, I think it kind of builds up to going, okay, I can at least have faith into looking forward, because it's like not only is your future your present and your future's future. Like it seems very the best word was nurturing. I think it's like, all right, guys, here we go. But it's kind of slow rolling it, but let's roll. Time is.
Yeah, and I think you're definitely right there. I think there's been that transition. Shad Khan talked about it recently, saying that we have to stop going after the shiny free agents. We have to stop doing that. It's about building through the draft and developing your own talent. And for the first time in years, you can really feel the sense of urgency of building a culture that fosters development, a culture that is actually built to try to build something where, when you look back at 2017, they had core elements where they could have built a really good team off of that. They were missing the quarterback to really, have a dominant team go for a while. And that was really why they missed. But there weren't a lot of moves that were done at that point that felt like they were nurturing a developing environment, more like they were just going to bring in a free agent guy to replace something and just, churn out the roster like that and never, yeah, exactly. Patching a hole, putting a Band-Aid over it instead of sewing up the wound and healing and actually doing things the right way. Like sometimes you have to, deal with a few growing pains to help out the future of your roster. There was a lot of things that were done wrong back then. Thanks Tom Coughlin for ruining our franchise twice. Should really be on the Mount Rushmore for that. But
appreciate that.
I don't know if I'll ever get over, losing Jalen Ramsey, who would definitely have gone down as one of my favorite players. But
for sure. For sure. Who is the Jags? I know we
who
talked
cares?
about the Rushmores earlier. Who's the Rushmore for Jacksonville right now?
You want to do the Rushmores for the Jaguars? It's going to be Fred Taylor, Jimmy Smith, Tony Baselli, and there's a lot of argument of what you can put here. I could make an argument for some. It would have been Jalen Ramsey if he was here longer, but I feel like Mark Brunell has to go there just because he was the quarterback during the time where we were at our best. The 1999 season, we went 14-2. We lost 2 times to those shit playbook stealing scumbags, the Tennessee Titans, and then lost to them in the AFC Championship game. And then they went.
By the way?
Yes.
Okay, I was like, wait a minute. All right, cool.
You goddamn right. Jimmy Smith should be a Hall of Famer, and the fact that he's not even ever really considered for the Hall of Fame is just disgusting. You got to go back and look. Just look at his numbers. Just look at what he did to that Baltimore Ravens defense that had Ray Lewis and Ed Reed, that disgusting defense. He went for 296 yards on them. Put some respect on that man's name.
Jimmy.
But
baby.
you could argue that Maurice Jones-Drew belongs in that spot, and I don't hate you for that. I love Maurice Jones-Drew. He's one of my all-time favorite players. Running back is my all-time favorite position. So Fred Taylor, Maurice Jones-Drew, they will always be like my guys. I just think that Mark Brunell playing quarterback during the time when we were at our best, taking us to 2 AFC championship games, I feel like he has and was involved with more team accomplishments, whereas Maurice Jones-Drew, no fault to his own, he's only a running back. He can't do anything, especially when you have Chad Henne, Blaine Gabbert, the tail end of David Garrard.
Was Henderson there long enough?
Henderson was an absolute animal. He was there for a while. Marcus Stroud. Like, you have some guys that make the conversation, but if you ask most Jaguars fans, Fred, Jimmy, and Tony are pretty universal. Some might switch some out there, but those ones are pretty universal. It's that fourth slot. Well, I mean, he's our only Hall of Famer, so he kind of gets in there automatically because of that. Fred Taylor should be a Hall of Famer, and Jimmy should be a Hall of Famer. But yeah, there's really debate for that fourth spot there. I could go with Mark Brunell. I could go with Maurice Jones-Drew. I mean, personally, I could put Regine Mathis in there because I'm a huge Regine Mathis fan. So that's why, I was a huge Jalen Ramsey fan. I love a good corner that can just lock down one side of the field or take a receiver out of the game. And Regine Mathis never got his proper respect. That dude was a dog every year. Underrated. Shout out to him. But the Jaguars, like you were saying, tagging back to this point, they really, I feel like, are fostering that environment where they want to develop what they have. They want to focus on bringing in guys that are system friendly, that want to learn, that want to grow in the system, not selfish guys. You don't want choir boys. You want some dogs. That's what I want on my team. But you also have to have somebody that is team first, not player first. Right. And I think they really have done a good job changing the environment, changing the culture. It's been a loser culture in Jacksonville for so long. The 2017 team, they really tried to kick that out, but there was a lot of strong personalities in that locker room, and they didn't have the right people there to manage it, and it just didn't work out. But I think they're in a spot where they have the right players with the right attitudes, the right coaching, that they can put together a solid unit that's going to compete in the playoffs every year. So I'm happy about it. The rest of these draft picks, touching back, just so we can close out this draft class here. You got Javon Foster in the fourth, which is a guy who's probably going to come in and play swing tackle, probably rotate into a few other offensive line positions, just kind of learn the game. He doesn't have to come in and start. We solidified the line. Cam Robinson's under contract. We re-signed Ezra Cleveland to play left guard. We brought in Mitch Morse, which puts Luke Fortner as a backup that can rotate in there and be like a backup instead of the guy. Brandon Sheriff still at the right guard, and then Anton Harrison playing right tackle, who was very good as a rookie. So they've got some guys there. Javon Foster doesn't have to come in and start. I like the pick. He's a big dude, strong. Let him develop. We'll see what we got there. The other fourth round pick, Jordan Jefferson, was a little bit more of a question mark for me. It was our third LSU player of the draft at this point. And there was another LSU lineman who was still on the board, Mekhi Wingo, that most people, I would say, probably had him rated as the higher prospect than Jefferson. But hey, if there's one thing that Trent Baalke knows how to draft, it's defensive linemen. So I will trust and defer to him on that one. Fifth round, we got DeAndre Prince. I'm excited about this one. This is a guy who should fit that man corner
scheme that we're trying to run now. It's a 5th round pick, so what are you really going to get out of him? But I heard a lot of good things. I've seen some good things on the little bit of film that I've watched about him, so I'm excited to see what we can get there. Keelan Robinson, another 5th round pick. He's really going to get brought in to be our second kick returner. I didn't mention it before, but Devin Duvernay signed with Jacksonville. He's basically a lot like Jamal Agnew, but he's a better wide receiver. He gives you pretty much the same thing in the return game. Phenomenal returner, but he's a little bit more polished as a wide receiver than Agnew is, and we can kind of end the Jamal Agnew shouldn't be out there as a wide receiver thing. That was a highly debated topic amongst Jaguars fans. So Keelan Robinson, because of these new kickoff rules, which I'm also super excited to see how this plays out. So the 2 kick returner things now become super important. So will be really interesting to see how that plays out. And then Cam Little in the 6th round, we had to get a kicker. Brandon McManus is a piece of shit human being. So glad he's gone and he's someone else's problem. But Jaguars are going to have to deal with their legal repercussions and whatnot from that. So moving on. Happy to get a kicker, young guy. He's super confident. I've seen some of his stuff. So I'm like, you know what? Let me get a kicker with a little bit of swagger out there. Why not? Why not?
Swagsonville.
And then another thing that Trent Baalke is known for is arm length. He has a threshold for arm length that is longer for his defensive line positions that people are always like, oh my God, he just looks for these arm length. Like, that's why we passed on Aiden Hutchinson and we went with Trayvon Walker's, because Aiden Hutchinson has shorter arms. They call them T-Rex arms and things like that. And they say that's why we didn't take them. So that leads me to our 7th round pick and our final pick of the draft, Miles Cole, who had the longest wingspan and the longest arms of anybody in the NFL draft. So I just knew that Trent Baalke could not help himself. He was not going to leave the draft without taking the guy with the longest arms in the draft. He can't help himself,
He feeds into it. Yeah.
It's built into who he is. It's a trait that he loves. Length is important in the trenches, especially. But man, he just could not help himself with that one. So from what I've heard about that kid is, he's got a motor. He can go, but he's got a lot to learn. Another really raw prospect, but he's a 7th round pick. So what are we really talking about here?
Right. So I mean, you see some crazy things come out of some guys that are just ready to go. Yeah, I mean, so who knows? I mean, as long as they're hungry, they probably got some room at the table, to be honest. So just come hungry. That's all you can do. Put your head down, man. Hopes up. Let's go.
All right. Well, I think we did a pretty good job. We covered the contract extensions for the franchise cornerstones and Trevor Lawrence and Joshua Hines Allen. We talked about the stadium deal. Jaguars back in Jacksonville for 30 years. So that's a big fuck you to Jason LaCanfora and all you other idiots that said we were going to be the London Jaguars. We have these free agent additions that weren't these super high price free agents, but really solid moves. We had a draft that built depth and brought in players that can compete. So all in all, I think Trent Baalke really did a good job to redeem himself in Jaguars fans' eyes. But obviously, we're not going to know how that plays out until we hit the field.
On the field. Let's go.
And, we're getting very close. Training camp's around the corner. Preseason's around the corner. And I cannot wait because this is the worst part of the year where baseball's the only thing on TV. And no disrespect to baseball, but there's no basketball. There's no hockey. There's no football. It's tough to have just one thing. Got me out there on the Hard Rock Sports betting app, betting on table tennis, which is a true thing.
Some WNBA.
Hey. Got to do what you got to do in this off season here until we can get back to football. But
I like
Kenny, I would like you, before we get into training camp, before the pads come on and we really have an idea of what's going to happen,
To you,
If
as
you
a
had to
fan,
give a prediction
Jags
for
fan
what the
battle ammo.
Jaguars are going to finish record-wise for the 2024 season, and do you think they make the playoffs? Do they win the division? And what you think their record is going to be? They went 9-8 last year
really
on a
do.
down year after losing like 5 games out of the last 6.
I honestly I do have high hopes for this season. To be honest, I really do believe the smoke. Like I do believe there is a lot of fire there. I honestly could see, like you mentioned, like with Hamilton, they led the league as sack duos. You know, I'll make it quick, but they led the league in sacks as a duo without having the same amount of pressure that Armstead and a healthy Hamilton's going to bring. There's going to be hail that will be rained down. I truly believe that. I think that Trevor had what 6, 7 drop touchdowns in the end zone, some shit, like
Calvin
something
Ridley had
crazy.
like 5 of those.
And I'm not dissing Ridley. I'm glad you're
I like
proud of him.
Ridley. I'm not dissing him. You
Wait,
know,
no, he's on
he
Tennessee and he
was
came from Atlanta. Fuck Ridley now. Wait a minute, because he
goddamn right.
burned
Hey,
my
yeah,
ass too. Fuck.
he's the
I
op
mean,
now.
you're a wonderful man. I'm willing to bet sports any day with you. WNB, dude. I gotta tell you, the over under for the fucking Liberty. I gotta tell you, it's fucking looking good, bud. Call me. But either way, no, I really do think. I think that they do make some moves this year. I would like to see 12 wins out of them. To be honest, I would
Whoa,
definitely
12
see,
wins. We're hearing 12
I
wins.
feel it.
Hey.
They were way too close for some games that could have went either way. I think missed opportunities
With a healthy
in the end
Trevor
zone.
might have been the difference, you know?
And a healthy Trevor, yeah, like you said, like I mean, he was banged up a lot last
4
year.
different injuries. He had a knee, he had an ankle, he had a concussion, then he had a shoulder that got thrown out. That's why he missed the Panthers game. So then he came back for the week 18 to try to get us into the playoffs, and his arm was dead. You could tell it was flat. There was no power. There was no zip. He shouldn't have played. Maybe we win with CJ Beathard, but how healthy is he for the playoffs? And it's like, are you just prolonging it another week? Like,
from him
what it really is? It's an AC joint sprain. Like, he's good now. Everything's great. But
I mean, that's got to be so reassuring as a Jags fan too, to see that money go to Trevor and go. Obviously, they know he's back. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's a good sign to go through that hardship through that year, still be able to make your money as a player, but still as a fan be able to absorb, like, oh, they got faith in him. He's back. Like, good. So I think having reliable weapons around him, again, Ingram is, I will sing his praises though. I like him as a player. I think ETN is just, I mean, he's just got a wonderful cast. The movie's going to be good no matter what. You got your star. You just signed him on. You got a great supporting cast. The movie's about to be the shit. I'm lucky to look at it. I'm happy to look at it as as my AFC team that I cheer on, obviously, because we've known each other for so long. It's like, obviously, you absorb that fandom in the sense of wishing well for them. So it's like, it's definitely exciting to look forward to what they're going to achieve, I think. And I think they will achieve it. I mean, I could see 11. I could see 12. I definitely could see.
If they're 11 or 12, I mean, that's got to pretty much seal the deal that they won the division then. Because I don't know that anybody's going more than that from the division.
What team is better put together? Like, from top
people
to
are talking
bottom,
about Houston going to take that division again.
Top to bottom? I don't know. There's a lot of new pieces, and there's a slump.
Well, this is also the guy that has Bryce Young, so he might be just, preying on that CJ slump so that his Bryce Young agenda can thrive.
I'm hoping that pick looks so good. But
hey, I'll take a sophomore slump from CJ Stroud too. So
so it's like, I'm not wishing on your downfall, CJ.
Nah, but I kind of do wish on
shit.
his downfall a little bit because he was disrespectful to Fred Taylor. And I'm sorry, but as somebody who's been a lifelong Jaguars fan, Fred Taylor is the reason I wear number 28 when I played flag football. When I played football as a kid, like, that was my number because of Fred Taylor, all-time favorite athlete. So when he went up in that podcast and he was they're talking about national titles. They're talking about national titles, and he looks at Fred Taylor and he's like, "You're from Florida. Like, how are you relevant to this conversation?" I'm like, "I'm sorry, but CJ Stroud has 0 rings 0 national titles. You know who has a ring?
Natties?
You know who has a ring? Fred Taylor with the Gators. Okay, Ohio State has more rings. Who gives a shit? Fred Taylor has a ring that you don't have, buddy.
Right. It's
And he
the,
tried to act like Florida was irrelevant. I'm like, buddy, if you had the ring and you were talking about Ohio State having way more titles, okay, then you got it. But you don't
But
have
that
the
was the
ring and you're
argument.
talking to somebody that has a ring. You had no
He
right
should
to
have
be
been a
that.
cowboy, dude. He
So
should have been a
now,
cowboy.
after
Yeah.
exactly after that, you know what?
Yeah.
I'll pray on your downfall, disrespecting the
Right.
OG like that.
I need him
But
to be, yeah. I need him
we
to be
have
the
we
number.
have I think exhausted our time here today.
Oh,
I just
yes.
want to say thank you to everybody who tuned in this week. Really appreciate you guys. I'm Ammo. I am taking over the Jaguars fan battle going forward. We're going to be trying to do weekly or every other week, until the season gets rolling. Once the season gets rolling, we will be here every week talking the Jaguars, talking about how they win every single week because they're going 17-0, going to the playoffs. They're going to win 3 games, and they're going to be 20-0, and we're going to win the goddamn Super Bowl. But if I have to give my real prediction, I will go 10 or 11 wins. Jaguars take the division. They go to the playoffs, and we'll see what we can do from there. I'm not going to say 12 like you. I'm not quite that optimistic. It's going to be a tough division. They got some guys here now.
Field goals, though. I think there'll be a couple winning field goals, but I think
I'm excited. I think this Jaguars team is going to put a lot of these doubters and a lot of these haters in the corner with their mouth closed because Trevor's going to show them that he is what everybody thought he was supposed to be. But Kenny, tell the people where they can find you. What else you got to say? Any closing remarks on this episode and the Jaguars offseason?
Hey, I wish them the best. Thanks for having me. I think it's you're gonna have a hell of a show ahead of you. I think Jags fans. I think you're in good hands. So I think you're gonna get some great information, some good witty banter back and forth, shit you can spit at people at your water cooler and know what the fuck you're talking about because you know it's true. So, get ready for a good season. Get ready for an exciting season because I truly believe they're going to put up some good numbers. I think you're going to get this man over here pretty damn excited. I think he's going to be a great host. So be on the lookout for it. Me, Stop Yelling Kenny. Always Stop Yelling podcast. Check us out on YouTube, X, anywhere that you can watch podcasts. We're on Spotify as well. We're coming back this year harder than we came last year, and we came a lot last year.
Hey, pause. Just don't come as fast as Will Levis.
I can't. Hey, I can't. All right, fair enough. We all have our issues. Either way, but yeah, no, I appreciate you guys for tuning in and keep checking it out. Take care.
All right, and as I said, I am Ammo. You can find me on Twitter at AmmoJags. You can catch me on the AFC South Fan Battle podcast every so often, chopping it up with the boys, talking about the Colts, the Texans, the Titans, and how they all suck and how the Jaguars are absolutely the best team in the division. So you can check us next time. Peace.